I mean, for me, because it's an awesome creative challenge. Like it's hard. It's something. I love the idea of how can I make it work? How can I make an experience where someone's reading a book and they're going to a website? How can I make that work in a really interesting and beautiful way? How can I create a dispersed experience across the web that's drawing people in a compelling way? How can I get my audience to move from the television screen to the website or to a live event in a way that sustains their interest and feeds it even further, in a way that's so right for the content. I find it a really awesome creative challenge in that sense, and I'm driven by challenges, and so in the end that's and also because I have an interest in a lot of different art forms, and so I don't just want to work in one, and so the idea of actually combining them in beautiful contained experiences seems like a lovely way to bring the different parts of myself together. Google Transmedia Documentary, Google Transmedia Activism, and then you'll start to see there's some really interesting projects going on. Go to social networking nights, transmedia social networking nights, digital media social networking nights, because in the end it's all about the people. So you need to be having conversations with people and finding out about the people that are working in the industry, how they operate. So actually going along to events and nights, doing research on projects and seeing the variety of projects that are out there, seeing the projects that have been getting awards. Because one, you want to know what's out there, and two, you want to build on them, as opposed to doing the same thing over and over again. Research is an important element. Getting out there and meeting people from different areas and having conversations with them, not being precious about not wanting to talk about the story or something like that, but also sort of respecting people's time, and that I see it quite often. It's like, people expecting free consultations and things like that. These are professionals and people that work in their area, so respect their time. In terms of documentation, one is obviously you can put together a presentation for your team if you like, showing them the variety of the projects that are out there. You can think about putting together a pitch document in which you're outlining not just the documentary, but the other elements. Like start with digital and start with the website, and think about how can I not just make the website obviously a promotional material in terms of a pamphlet, but what sort of content would be there. And as I've mentioned before, I think a really helpful starting point is, what do I want my audience, or what will they be thinking before they walk in and see the documentary? What is it that they need to hear? What is it that will get them interested? What is it that I can reveal to them beforehand, which won't ruin the main experience? And what is it that they'll be thinking and feeling when they walk out? What is it I want them to be thinking and feeling? What are the sort of things that they'll want to act on and do? Do I want to make it easier for them to communicate with their friends about it? Do I want to let them delve deeper into some element? Do I want them to act in some way, bring in some social activism? Do I want them to just do a slow exploration? Do I want to reach other people with different content that I know won't necessarily perhaps watch the documentary, So those sorts of things, like think about those sorts of things at the beginning, and then and keep going out and having your conversations with people from there. And also, more and more funding bodies and broadcasters are getting a lot more savvy with this area. A lot of them are insisting, on having an interactive element in some way, and sometimes they're insisting a bit too far. Insisting it's a game when it's not necessarily a game is appropriate. But there are people who have worked on a few projects, so you can have the conversations with your commissioners, with the funding bodies, and they know people that they can actually introduce you to as well. So yeah, I think there's a few starting points there. Yes, Australia has a weird habit of moving back to the conservative, quite often. There are some wonderful people here, but they're having to do it themselves very much, and there isn't much support for them. What I see in a major way here in Australia is that there are oftentimes, let's say it's the digital elements, it's basically outsourced, which is fine. It means some great stuff happens, but what it means is there is no progression, there's no moving forward. The people that are working in broadcast and working in film are still working in broadcast, they're still working in film. There's no understanding of actual, how do you work with digital, or how can we do live events in an interesting way? How do we work with games? They're staying isolated, and that's one of the biggest issues. Is I'm seeing it over and over again. It's basically it's remaining siloed, which means there isn't a development. You're always sort of at first base, in terms of that area. But there are some wonderful people here that are doing some interesting stuff. But they're really fighting for it, and they're having to do it alone. There needs to be I don't think there is a genuine interest in actually, really exploring another area and understanding it, and I guess absorbing it into your creative process. There hasn't been that interest, and so perhaps the next generation, of people coming in will be thinking more that way. But we'll see. It's a difficult thing because people who are entering the area, they want to be respected, they want to be legitimized, if you like, and if the people that are in the roles that do that do not respect or care much about that area, then the new people are less likely to actually explore it, because it's not going to do much for them in terms of a career, unless they're going more direct to their audience. I think this is where we'll see some interesting things, more where creatives are going direct to their audience, so they're answering that they can explore more, as opposed to trying to convince their peers that it's an interesting thing.